If I asked you to name the absolute most terrifying undisputed apex predator of the ocean, you would probably say the great white shark, and you would be completely embarrassingly wrong, because in the brutal, unforgiving servers of the global ocean, the great white shark is not the final boss. In fact, when great white sharks detect that this specific animal has entered their time zone, they will literally evacuate the entire continent and not return for over a year. The creature you're looking at right now is so unbelievably overpowered, so hyper-intelligent, and so completely unhinged that they have recently started organizing coordinated tactical strikes to sink luxury human yachts just for fun. They are the apex of the apex, the absolute pinnacle of marine engineering. We call them killer whales, but they aren't even whales at all. They are actually the largest, most violently psychotic species of dolphin on planet Earth. They don't just hunt for survival, they hunt for sport, they play with their food, they possess distinct cultural languages, and they are actively the biggest trolls in the entire animal kingdom. Today, we are diving deep into the terrifying biology, the mind-bending hunting tactics, the bizarre cultural fads, and the absolute sheer disrespect of the ocean's most flawless build. Welcome to the ultimate biological breakdown of the orca. To understand why the orca completely dominates the marine meta, we have to look at their base stats, because nature basically gave them the ultimate premium starter pack. An adult male orca can reach up to 32 feet in length and weigh an astonishing 11,000 pounds. That is the equivalent of a fully loaded school bus made entirely of muscle, blubber, and rage, capable of swimming at speeds exceeding 35 miles per hour. But raw physical size is completely useless if you don't have the hardware to back it up. Let's look at the weaponry. An orca's mouth is lined with roughly 40 to 50 interlocking, 3-inch long, massive conical teeth. Unlike a shark, whose teeth are designed to tear and rip chunks of flesh, an orca's teeth are designed to completely lock down and crush their prey. Once they bite down, absolutely nothing is escaping, but their most overpowered physical trait isn't their teeth, it's their built-in biological wall hacks. Located right in the front of their massive heads is an organ called the melon. This organ allows the orca to utilize incredibly advanced echolocation. They emit a series of rapid, high-frequency clicks that bounce off objects in the water and return to their lower jaw, which acts as a highly sensitive acoustic receiver. But this isn't just basic sonar. Their echolocation is so unbelievably precise, so absurdly high definition, that an orca can scan a pregnant female stingray buried completely under the sand in pitch-black water and successfully identify exactly how many babies are inside her womb based entirely on the density of the acoustic reflection. They can literally see inside other animals.
State and federal governments are trying to help 3 orcas, one in each southern resident pod, see their pregnancies through the 18 months or so to delivery.
They know exactly where your vital organs are before they even take a bite. And trust me, they know exactly which organs taste the best. Which brings us to the most notoriously disrespectful hunting strategy in the entire animal kingdom. With a build this massive, orcas need a staggering amount of calories every single day to fuel their massive brains and bodies. And for a specific faction of orcas roaming the coasts of South Africa and California, their absolute favorite meal is the liver of a great white shark. But how do you safely fight a 15-foot killing machine equipped with rows of razor-sharp teeth? You don't fight them. You exploit a massive glitch in the shark's biological programming. Orcas have somehow figured out that if a shark is physically turned upside down, it enters a paralyzed, comatose state known as tonic immobility. The shark's brain literally shuts off. So an orca will accelerate at top speed, aggressively T-bone a great white shark directly in the side, grab its pectoral fin, and violently flip the shark onto its back. The ocean's most feared predator is instantly paralyzed, completely helpless. But it gets so much worse. The orca doesn't just eat the shark. Oh no, that would be too messy. The orca performs a flawless, microscopic surgical extraction. Using their massive teeth, they make a precise, highly calculated incision right near the shark's pectoral fins, and then they physically squeeze the shark like a giant tube of toothpaste until its massive, nutrient-dense liver literally pops out into the water. The orca eats the liver, which is rich in a highly nutritious compound called squalene, and just leaves the rest of the perfectly good shark to sink to the bottom of the ocean. It is a level of surgical precision and utter disrespect that completely terrifies the shark community. In 2017, off the coast of South Africa, two specific orcas named Port and Starboard went on an absolute rampage, surgically removing the livers from at least 8 different great white sharks in a matter of days. As a result, the entire great white population instantly abandoned their primary hunting grounds and didn't return for over a year. The orcas didn't just beat the sharks, they evicted them from the entire server. But taking down sharks relies on a biological glitch. What happens when an orca wants to hunt something smart, agile, and out of reach? Let's travel to the freezing waters of Antarctica, where seals think they are completely safe resting on top of massive chunks of floating ice. If a predator is in the water and you are on the ice, you should be untouchable, right? Wrong. The orcas simply decided to master advanced fluid dynamics. A pod of orcas will spot a seal on an ice floe, swim back a few hundred yards, line up shoulder to shoulder in a perfect synchronized military formation, and charge directly at the ice at top speed. At the very last possible second, they all dive perfectly in unison. The displaced water creates a massive, localized, perfectly calculated tidal wave that violently washes over the ice, sweeping the terrified seal directly into the waiting mouths of the pod. They literally weaponize the ocean itself. And here is where their reputation as absolute griefers really comes into play. Because they are so unbelievably dominant, they don't always kill their prey immediately. Orcas are notoriously famous for playing with their food. When they hunt seals, dolphins, or penguins, they will frequently use their massive, powerful tail flukes to punt the animals up to 80 feet into the air. They treat them like biological volleyballs, slapping them out of the water over and over again, completely breaking their bones before finally eating them. Why do they do this? Biologists believe it is partly to practice their aim, partly to tenderize the meat, and partly because, frankly, when you are the undisputed god of the ocean, you just get a little bored. Quick question for you guys before we dive into the most insane thing orcas do. Out of all the overpowered animal builds on Earth, who do you think would win in a hypothetical size-equated fight, the orca or the honey badger? Drop your craziest theories in the comments down below, because both of these animals are absolute menaces to society. Now, you cannot analyze an orca without talking about the one single upgrade that completely separates them from almost every other animal on Earth: highly advanced cultural intelligence. Orcas do not have a single unified global society. They are actually deeply divided into highly specific factions called ecotypes. In the Pacific Northwest, for example, you have the resident orcas who only eat fish, particularly salmon. Then, literally swimming in the exact same waters, you have the transient orcas who absolutely refuse to eat fish and exclusively hunt marine mammals like seals, dolphins, and baby whales. These two groups live in the exact same ocean, but they refuse to interact, they refuse to interbreed, and they literally speak completely different languages. Their clicks, whistles, and pulse calls are as different as English is to Mandarin. It is basically systemic classism and racism in the ocean. The transients look down on the residents, and they stay entirely out of each other's way. And because these cultures are so highly specialized, it leads to some absolutely absurd dietary choices. Did you know that the orca is actually a recognized natural predator of the North American moose? Yes, you heard that right. In regions like British Columbia and Alaska, massive 1,000-pound moose frequently swim across deep ocean channels to travel between islands to forage for food. And if a pod of transient orcas happens to be swimming by and spots a giant, clumsy land mammal paddling through the ocean, they will absolutely drag that moose to the bottom of the sea. The idea of a killer whale eating a forest animal sounds like a glitch in the simulation, but to an orca, it's just free calories on a Tuesday. Because their brains are so massive and their social structures are so tightly knit, orcas are actually highly susceptible to cultural fads and social media trends, just like human teenagers. When you don't have to spend your entire day worrying about predators, you have a lot of free time to invent stupid games. The most hilarious example of this happened in 1987 in the Puget Sound area near Washington State. A female orca from the K-pod randomly killed a salmon, decided not to eat it, and instead just balanced the dead fish on her head like a completely absurd biological top hat. She then swam around showing it off to her friends. Within weeks, the trend completely exploded. Suddenly, orcas from two completely different neighboring pods were all seen swimming around with dead salmon perfectly balanced on their heads. It was the hottest fashion fashion trend in the ocean, and then, just like human fads, roughly 6 weeks later, it suddenly became completely uncool, and they all just stopped doing it simultaneously. They literally invented a meme, ran it completely into the ground, and moved on. But sometimes, these highly coordinated cultural trends are a lot less funny and a lot more terrifying. Which brings us to the most recent highly viral orca phenomenon, the Great Yacht Uprising. In the summer of 2020, off the Iberian coast of Spain and Portugal, a highly intelligent female orca named White Gladys started a brand new cultural trend. For reasons scientists still cannot definitively confirm, Gladys began aggressively ramming into the rudders of luxury sailboats and yachts. She would bite the steering mechanisms, physically snap the rudders entirely off, and spin the massive boats around in circles. But here's the terrifying part. She didn't just do it once. She went back to her pod, and she explicitly taught the younger, impressionable juvenile orcas exactly how to do it. Within months, an entire gang of rebellious teenage orcas started hunting down human yachts. Between 2020 and 2024, there were over 500 recorded interactions, resulting in multiple luxury vessels being completely sunk to the bottom of the ocean. The internet absolutely lost its mind, crowning Gladys as the leader of a communist anti-billionaire ocean uprising. But marine biologists have a much more fascinating theory. They don't think it's revenge. They actually think it is just a high adrenaline game. Remember the salmon hats? Biologists believe that breaking off a massive fiberglass rudder from a moving boat is just the newest, coolest extreme sport for teenage orcas. It is the oceanic equivalent of a TikTok challenge. They aren't trying to murder humans. They are literally just vandalizing our expensive toys for clout because they are bored. They are massive, and absolutely nobody in the ocean can tell them to stop. Which leads us to the greatest, most profound mystery surrounding the orca. With all of this absolute destructive power, with their surgical precision, their high intelligence, and their utter ruthlessness, there is not a single verified record in human history of a wild orca hunting and killing a human being in the ocean. Let that sink in. They eat great white sharks, they drown moose, they punt seals into the stratosphere, and they sink our yachts. But if a human is swimming right in front of them, completely vulnerable, they will simply swim up, look at us with deep, calculating intelligence, and leave us completely alone. Why? Some scientists believe we simply don't smell appetizing. Others believe our bones are too dense and not worth the effort. But the most popular, deeply unsettling theory is that their culture is so advanced and their generational knowledge is so deep that they fundamentally recognize us as fellow apex predators. They look at us, they recognize another highly intelligent, highly dangerous species, and they have culturally agreed to an unspoken universal truce. As long as we stay out of their way, they stay out of ours. It is an incredible display of restraint from the ocean's most unhinged predator. The orca is the ultimate, flawless build. They took the stats of a heavy tank, combined it with the radar of a nuclear submarine, the social coordination of a wolf pack, and the sheer psychopathy of an internet troll. They don't just survive in the ocean, they actively rule it with an iron fin. If you want to see more deep dives into Earth's craziest, most broken animal builds, make sure you absolutely destroy that subscribe button, drop a comment letting me know which creature's stats we should analyze next, and I will see you guys in the next video.